Hey everybody, watch this time. 5 Blu-ray recommendations of things that I've been watching recently from sort of 5 diverse labels, if I can possibly make it. I'm going to start with a film that I probably should have already seen by this stage, that people will probably be surprised that I hadn't, that it was released in Criterion either earlier in the year, late last year, one of those anyway. It's Daisies by Vera Chytilova. Czech new wave film from a female director that is sort of hailed as one of the classics of that oeuvre, or that genre. On one hand, it's easy to see why in some other ways it's a bit high scratchy. It's a bit of a short run film, and it centres on these 2 young females here who are runaway slobbish youths of some sort. You know, the fact that they are female is sort of important in the big scheme of things, given the time and place that this was released. They basically are just living life to their fullest, not really caring about other people that are around them, not really worrying about the consequences of their actions or anything. They're just living life, and it's that kind of devil-may-care feel that gives Daisies its power. On one hand, it's a film where nothing really happens. It's a film where, you know, there's not really much of a strong narrative to go through the whole way. But on the other hand, given that it's a film released in like 1966 by a female director, it's kind of amazing that this didn't get censored in the way that other things around that time did by the power of institution. The idea that we had females acting in an anarchic fashion, that they kind of were like wanting destruction to the rules and the constraints of life, and that this kind of went past, you know, unopposed, is really interesting, especially as the viewers, especially as a viewer of somebody in their 40s, kind of look at them and go, God, those damn kids, they need a good smack around the head or whatever. I mean, I've sort of become, you know, as you get older, you kind of look at those things and go, to be just kind of quiet, like things have structure and have meaning and all that kind of stuff. And this is not that. Given that it's short runtime, and given that it just kind of lays it out there for you, you're kind of left to draw away your own conclusions of what it's about and what it should be saying. So Daisies is a really sort of fascinating release and fascinating film that is very much of its time and of its place. I think viewed through modern eyes, through modern lens, without historical context in its own right, robs it of why it's important and robs it of some of the things that are important about it. And as such, you know, it may leave some people feeling flat, but kind of put it within the historical context, you get an awful lot more out of it. Similarly, on that theme of a kind of anarchy or otherwise, we're going to go to a film that is released in Criterion. It's due out in the next couple of months in UK. I believe it's just been delayed. It's Smooth Talk. And Smooth Talk is a film by Joyce Chopra that has Laura Dern in the main role here. And Laura Dern plays a 15-year-old daughter who is started gone off the rails. She's at that classic 15-year-old age where they kind of don't want to be constrained by the rules of the house or to do things for people within the house. They don't really want to be part of the family unit. They want to explore and go do their own things. And Laura Dern is very much in the middle of that. She wants to push the boundaries. She wants to meet older men. She wants to go to parties. She wants to go out drinking. And devil may care about her responsibilities to her mother, father, the house, and everything else that's going on there. It's a film that's sort of played subtly, but played very realistic. I mean, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I sort of see a lot of this in that as well, in the way that she just wants to be out all the time. And while as parents, we can look at it and go, be careful. You know, you don't really have the skills yet with which to navigate the world or navigate people, or how other people aren't as innocent and as good as you are. In general, people want people that are different things. People will want to steal your youth from you. And it's a sort of like deeper look at that from a female point of view, which I think adds real weight to it and real, you know, levity to it. Joyce Chopra, in the extras, as it goes into, talks about how, you know, her life as a documentary filmmaker prepared her for releasing a film like this in such a way, and you can see that really play out in the film itself. I think it's a really interesting view of the parental-child relationship in and around the time in a like a truly realistic way. Like I say, I identified a lot with the things and the events that are happening within here, and ultimately when it starts to become uncomfortable and when it starts to become you know, a bit darker in tone. You really feel it. There's like a very long extended scene here that runs for about half an hour that is just tension filled the whole way. It's just, even watching it from my bed or from my chair, I could feel the tension right throughout that entire scene and that entire sequence that's within the film, and it gives it real power. And, you know, for that reason alone, I think Smooth Talk's a really worthwhile watch for anybody that is interested in family dynamics, and especially about, in a similar way to Daisy's, kind of the role of the anarchic female, kind of imposing their will on the world in some way. Enough of the anarchic females. We'll look at an anarchic male, or look at the role of a young female within society. This one is Imprint's Come Back Little Sheba, with Burt Lancaster, Shirley Booth, a film that tells the story of a family that takes in a young lodger from a local university, a very pretty young girl, into a household where there are problems within here. Burt Lancaster plays a man, Doc, who is a recovering alcoholic. He has got a relationship with his wife that seems to be sort of fractured and not that strong, and that they're coexisting in sort of habit, having been married early and young, and kind of living through. And so you have the classic Hollywood dynamic of married couple, not in a strong relationship, young, very bleary-eyed, misty-eyed, young, attractive female comes to live in the house with full of energy and verve and spirit. And you have what purports to be set up a very traditional Hollywood kind of third wheel story. But Come Back Little Sheba does more with it than that. It explores lots of the nature of long-term relationships, with that youthful energy, with recovering from serious addiction, with recovering, you know, your life and putting it all back together, and how the people around you make up that recovery and make up that life that you have, for good and for bad. That whole part elevates what should be a sort of predictable film and gives it another level to step up into, which I think really pays off. I think it's an absolutely terrific film, and one that is accompanied on the disc by a documentary by Burt Lancaster itself that's also terrific. It's about 50 minutes long, about the life and times of Burt Lancaster himself. Where this film goes, the way it takes it, the thematic stuff that it really goes into, it elevates it above what would be the normal run-of-the-mill films that you'd see around this time. Bring me to a label I haven't talked about in ages, a sub-label if you want, and one that has a current sale going on. So by the time this is up, search Amazon, search HMB, etc. for BFI Flipside. I am going to talk about Stranger in the House, starring James Mason primarily, but has Geraldine Chaplin and Bobby Darin in it. BFI Flipside, for those that are unaware, are like lost treasures of British cinema. Low budget stuff certainly, but things that haven't been seen in a long while. And this tells the story of James Mason as a, again, sort of man lost his way. He used to be a former defence lawyer, has now turned to drink, and is now struggling with his meaning of his life. And within the house he has a niece who is part of the late swinging 60s. And again, it's hard not to judge life and everything that's going around that time, as they're sort of exploring the world around them and exploring everything that life has to offer, both good and for bad. Stranger in the House deals with this subject material a bit differently than a lot of other things. It tries not to be judgy about it, but yet tries to see people for who they are and what they are, because in the middle of this there's a murder within the house, and James Mason's character decides to take on this case to prove the innocence of somebody, and he's not really sure of his motivations for it. He's not really sure why he should be able to do it. He doesn't even know if he's going to be capable of doing it, but he's sort of using it as a vehicle to kind of see of who he is as a man anymore. And as with most BFI Flipside releases, there's a really strong sense of theme that runs through this, of a film that sets out to do one thing and sets it out to do it really well. I don't think it's really multi-layered in an awful lot of ways, other than really examining that legacy of this late 60s and about life and kind of going out partying and doing all that kind of stuff, and the way that encouraged young people, and especially young men, to behave. And yet in a film that is extremely well made, that is extremely well crafted, that is got, you know, very well shot, great production design within it, etc. as well, and one that I think stands up really well, and it's sort of elevated even amongst the BFI Flipside range as being like a super well made kind of, I suppose, a bit higher budget version of the films that we normally see from that line. So one that I would hardly recommend. And if nothing else, a big shout out to BFI Flipside to watch more of those, as I hope to do over the next couple of weeks and months. And last one up, well, is an absolute stunner of a film that was nominated in the Oscars, so a very recent release, and one that I watched at the weekend and it absolutely broke me. I'm talking about The Quiet Girl. And The Quiet Girl was the Irish language nomination and was shortlisted obviously for the foreign film Oscar. And it tells the story of this young girl who grows up in poverty in inner city Ireland, and mother falls pregnant. Father's a bit of a useless bugger, and she gets shipped off to the country to live with her sisters, or her mother's sister, and her husband, in a very nice country part of Ireland. But this young girl is a very quiet girl. She rarely speaks. She goes to school. She doesn't engage with people. There's a scene early on in the film where she spills milk on herself and basically runs away from school because she can't deal with the social anxiety that comes from that. And you have a story of a young woman that's taken out of a big inner city family with a lot going on, with parents who are sort of not there, one because they're pregnant and one because they're just useless, and then put in a situation where she has the undivided attention of at least one parent, and how that changes a person. Jesus H, Mary, whatever way you want to say. Maybe it's because I recognise an awful lot of the Irishisms in this. This is adapted from a story by Claire Keegan, called Foster. Now, I had talked about Claire Keegan, one of Claire Keegan's books, Smallest Things Like These, that I read earlier on in the year. It's really short books, like super short books, but captures the intricacies and the small bits of Irish society and Irish relationships, and the relationships of people within towns, and the things that people don't say what they mean, just fabulously well. And I don't know if that entirely translates to the rest of the world, but from speaking to other people, it seems like it does. And within that setting, within that context, you get something that is really, for me, quite transformatively brilliant. I sat down to watch it on a Saturday afternoon and was emotionally destroyed by the end of it. Not necessarily because there's amazing, things that happen that really bring that pathos out, but just the existing and empathizing through somebody else's life and seeing the power of belonging, seeing the power of not being belonging, seeing the power of neglect, all of those things on another human being can't help but, touch you. And for a film that's called The Quiet Girl, it's almost like a silent movie in itself. There's very little speaking, goes along the whole way, as is very typical of, I would say, rural Ireland. An awful lot of grunting and shouting and things going on, and it's the things that people don't say that mean the most. Actions speak louder than words, and all of that's captured so beautifully in this film. Sad things about the release, there's nothing else on the disc, but this is a film that I just had to have to watch again and again for when I need that kind of catharsis to kind of release from myself and take me to somewhere else. This is The Quiet Girl. A hearty recommendation. And that's my watch list for this week. Let me know what you've been watching yourself, if you've seen any of these, if you've any, the same thoughts, opposing thoughts, anything like that comes along with it. I thank you very much for your company, and I'll see you again next time on the channel. Take care, all the best, bye.